So why do we need a new word? Or it's been there. Well, the unfortunate fact is that for many reasons, during the 20th century, most socialists forgot or ignored that tradition. They supported, and in many cases they even implemented, approaches to economic growth and development that were grossly harmful to the environment. We have to admit that up front, and we have to be very clear that that's the case. One exception to that has been the experience in Cuba, especially in the last 20 to 30 years. The only country that meets the WWF's standards for sustainable development. Socialist Voice, which is a publication I help edit, recently published an interview by Osvaldo Martinez, who's the president of the Economic Affairs Commission of Cuba's National Assembly. And in that interview, he talked about what socialism is and should be in this century. I want to read a chunk of what Osvaldo Martinez said. He said, "The socialism practiced by the countries of the socialist camp replicated the developmental model of capitalism, in the sense that socialism was conceived as a quantitative result of growth in productive forces. It thus established a purely quantitative competition with capitalism, and development consisted in achieving this without taking into account that the capitalist model of development is the restructuring of a consumer society that is inconceivable for humanity as a whole." He said, "The planet would not survive. It is impossible to replicate the model of one car for each family, the model of the idyllic North American society of Hollywood, etc. Absolutely impossible. And this can't even be the reality for the 250 million inhabitants of the United States," he says, "let alone the billions of people in the rest of the world." And he finished, "It is therefore necessary to come up with another model of development that is compatible with the environment and has a much more collective way of functioning." In my view, one good reason for using the term eco-socialism is to signal a clear break with the kinds of policies that Martinez describes as typifying socialism in the 20th century. It's a way of saying that we want to create a society not based on having more things, but on living better. As the Hugo Blanco and his people in Peru, the term is buen vivir, which is easily translated as living well, but actually means living appropriately. It's a way of saying that we want not quantitative growth, but qualitative growth in human society, and that's what socialism is about. Another reason is to signal loud and clear that we view ecology and climate change not just as another stick to bash capitalism with, but as one of the principal problems facing humanity in this century. Now, although he has never used the word eco-socialism so far as I know, one of the strongest defenders of eco-socialist ideas in the world today is Evo Morales, the president of Bolivia, the first indigenous head of state in Latin America. 2 weeks ago, the United Nations General Assembly presented Evo a medal and a parchment that declared him the world hero of Mother Earth. Cool. He got a medal and he got a big parchment. And he stood up and he said, "This is not an award for me. This is an award for the indigenous peoples of Latin America who have fought to save the earth." In a short essay he wrote last November, Evo brilliantly defined the problem, named the villain, and posed the alternative. A longish quote from Evo Morales. "Competition and the thirst for profit without limits of the capitalist system are destroying the planet. Under capitalism, we are not human beings, but consumers. Under capitalism, Mother Earth does not exist. Instead, there are raw materials. Capitalism is the source of the asymmetries and imbalances in the world. It generates luxury, ostentation, and waste for a few, while millions in the world die from hunger. In the hands of capitalism, says Ivo, everything becomes a commodity. The water, the soil, the human genome, the ancestral cultures, justice, ethics, death, and life itself. Everything, absolutely everything, can be bought and sold under capitalism. Even climate change has become a business, he said. And he finished, climate change has placed all humanity before a great choice: to continue the ways of capitalism and death, or to start down the path of harmony with nature and respect for life. Ivo's argument, I would suggest, really is the main argument of this book that I was really thrilled that Socialist Resistance wanted to put out. And that is...
Fallen on the floor.
Tells you how well I remember the book. And that is that climate change is not, as I said at the beginning, a technical or an economical problem. It is a matter of justice. Global warming is a form of class war. A war of the rich nations and the rich corporations against the world's poor, against the world's working people, against the oppressed everywhere. The only choice, the only way forward, is eco-socialism, which I suggest we don't have to get into vast volumes. Eco-socialism can be defined very simply. It means a socialism that will give top priority to the restoration of ecosystems that capitalism has destroyed, to the reestablishment of agriculture and industry on ecologically sound principles, and to mending what Marx called the metabolic rift, the destructive divide that capitalism has created between humanity and nature. The fate of the ecological struggle is closely tied to the fortunes of the class struggle as a whole. The long neoliberal drive to weaken the movements of working people has also undermined ecological resistance worldwide, isolating it, pushing its leaders and organizations to the right in many cases. But today, neoliberalism is discredited. Its financial and economic structures are in shambles. There is a growing recognition that profound economic change is needed. This is a historic opportunity for ecological activists to join with workers, to join with indigenous activists, to join with socialist and anti-imperialist movements here and around the world to make ecological transformation a central feature of the economic change that is so clearly needed. Together we can build a better world for future generations. It won't be easy, and it won't be quick, but together we can make it happen. Thank you.